Hello friends, welcome back to EPG Pathshala to continue our journey of learning object oriented concepts in C programming using C++. In the previous module, we had a brief discussion about the object orientation and the elements of object oriented programming. In today's session, we will try to have an overview of C++ programming language. In today's session, we will discuss basic character set in C++. We will also discuss identifiers and keywords in C++, data types in C++, operators in C++. As we know that in all programming languages or any language for that matter, there is a basic character set on which the entire language is being built. So, like all other languages, C++ also has a basic character set which is more or less same as that of C. It comprises of 96 characters including space character, horizontal tab, vertical tab, form feed and new line character plus the 91 graphical characters including alphabets, digits and operators and other special characters. Apart from this, some characters in C and C++ may not be available in all environments. So, in those environments where those characters are not available, if we want to use them, we can make use of trigraph sequences. Trigraph sequences is the sequence of 3 characters and the characters that we can represent using these 3 character set called trigraph are curly brackets, pound sign, caret, vertical bar, tilde. All these characters can be represented wherever these characters are not supported by the environment. Now, there are some non-printable characters that we normally want to use with the characters and the string. For example, when we are displaying a string, we may want a new line character to be inserted in between, so that at that point the output is being moved to the next line. So, the set of escape sequences that we can use in C++ are alert, backspace, form feed, new line, carriage return, all the usual escape sequences which we have been using in C. Now, suppose if we want these escape sequence to be displayed as is in the output string, what we need to do is we need to use double backslash to have them printed in the output string. For example, if we want to get a string displayed as the escape sequence is \n, we will have to do it this way, that we will have to say cout the escape sequence. Now, here you would notice that we are using double backslash, so that this /n as it is gets displayed. If we use a single backslash, then the output would be moved to the next line. C also reserves some of the alternative representations for operators and punctuations. This is a list of alternative representations that we can have for some of the operators and the punctuations. Using this basic character sets, we form the tokens, and one of the tokens that we have is the identifiers. Identifiers are the names given to the programming language elements. The kind of language elements for which we would need a name is function, that whenever we define a function, we need a name for function, we need a name for object, we need a name for label, we need a name for function parameter, macros, type defs, enumerated data types, classes, templates, namespaces, struct, union, so on and so forth. And every language has some set of rules which govern that what way we can define a identifier. C++ also has a set of rules that we need to follow while using a identifier. The rule is that the first character in the identifier has to be either the letter which is either capital A to Z or small a to Z or underscore. So, the first letter has to be one of these, that is capital alphabets A to Z or small alphabet E to Z or underscore. That can be followed by any number of characters which may include again these alphabets, digits 0 to 9 and underscore. In some of the languages, we have a restriction on to what could be the length of the identifier. Most of the languages allow you to have the identifier of any length, but only the specific number of characters are significant. So, if you want two identifiers to be different, the first significant set of characters must be unique for each identifier that we define. Like if you would recall that in C, the length of the identifier is 1 to 31. In C++, there is no such restriction that has been applied onto the length of the identifier, but many of the implementations do impose one. So, whenever you are using a language, you just check out the environment or the compiler that you are using, that does it impose any restriction. If it imposes, that you have to follow. If not, as per the definition of C++, there is no the length maximum limit that has been imposed onto the length of the identifier name. The identifier that we have, some of them have special meanings assigned by the language, and they can only be used for that specific purpose. And the identifiers which are set aside by the language for a specific use, and their use has a special meaning associated with them, is called keyword. C++ also has a set of keywords. Some of the keywords are borrowed as it is from C, because you know that C++ actually is the superset of C. So, whatever is valid in C, and there is a backward compatibility to C, therefore, whatever is valid in C is also valid in C++. So, this is the set of keywords that is common in both C and C++, but apart from these, because C is extension of C, therefore, it has introduced many more concepts and object oriented paradigm. So, it requires more keywords to have those facilities in the language. So, apart from these keywords which are common in C and C++, C++ has these additional keywords. As we move on to the later modules, we would be using these keywords from time to time, and whenever we would be using these keywords, we'll try to understand the meaning and the purpose for which these keywords are to be used. Every language has predefined set of data types. So, the C++ also has set of predefined data types. These data types are more or less similar to the data types that we have used in C. Only few data types are introduced in C++, and some of them have been extended. So, these are the basic data types, which is more or less same as that of in C. These are the character type data types, character 16T, 32T and varchar T. Here you can see the size and precision. As you may be aware that the size and precision is also dependent onto the machine for which the compiler is being written. So, the size of a data type actually is machine dependent or the platform dependent as well, but by and large this is the minimum size and precision that these data types will have. So, we have a set of character types, we have set of integer types, we have set of data types which can help us store real values, void type and the null pointer. Apart from these data types, C++ has introduced another very useful and interesting data type called Boolean data type. You may be aware that a Boolean data type is a data type whose variable can attain only two possible values, that is true or false or 0 or 1. The keyword that is used for the Boolean data type in C++ is bool, and the variable of this data type can hold two possible values, that is true and false. True and false are predefined constants. So, let us see, if we want to define the variable of bool type, we will be able to define it like bool found, and once we define the data type of this bool type, we can assign either true or false value to this bool data type. Now, this constants true and false also are represented internally as integer, and that also helps us in achieving the backward compatibility to C. Now, for what kind of purpose this Boolean variable would be used? These Boolean variables can be used for representing some flag kind of a status kind of values which have only two possible options. Let us have a look at this program. Now, this is a program, this is actually a function which is been which actually takes a list and an element and tries to search that whether this element is present in the list or not. Now, in this case we need to compare this element with elements in the list. So, we will compare this with all elements starting from the first element till the end of the element. So, while loop that we need to run from 0 to n, but if we find the element in between, we must stop that particular process. So, actually the termination condition for this while loop are two. First, that if the array index reaches to the end of the array, we should stop, or if we find the element in between, then also we should stop. So, for this purpose a bool variable is a very useful one. We can set it initially to false, not false we would make it true. So, in the while loop we have two conditions. One, that we need to continue this loop till we reach the end of the list, or we have to continue till we do not find the element. So, if we reach the end of the list first, then due to this condition will come out, or if in between if we find the element, this will cause the loop to get terminated. So, we have initialized this found variable to false, and in condition not false would make it true. So, this condition is true, this condition is true, the loop will execute. If we find an element, the found will be assigned a value true, indicating that the element has been found, and you would see that if when the found becomes true, when we go up, this not true will become false, and which will cause the loop to come out, and this Boolean variable we will return, which will be holding a value either true or false, indicating that whether variable has been found or not. We did not have the Boolean variable in C, but still we could write this kind of this program. What we used to do there? We used to use an integer variable for the same purpose, for which we have used a Boolean variable here. Now, when we can use integer variable for this purpose, what advantage do we have in using bool variable? Let us see the advantage of using Boolean variable. First of all, the Boolean variable conveys the intent, which means that if I am defining a variable found as bool, I know that this variable is a Boolean kind of variable, meaning thereby that this would be holding only two of the possible values, that is true or false or 0 or 1. If I am declaring it as an integer, it is not clear that what kind of value I am going to store into that variable. It could be any integer value that I might store in that variable, but once I say bool and a variable name, it is clear by the data type itself that the possible values that is going to get stored in this variable are only true or false or 0 or 1. Also, bool variable is unambiguously true or false, while integer can store any value. In this case, the variable found can be assigned a value 0, 1, 2, 4, 9, 10, anything if I declare found as an integer. But if I am declaring this as a bool, the only possible values that can be stored in the variable are true and false. So, this ensures that there are no subtle errors which might get introduced in our code. So, in C++, since we have a Boolean variable, so wherever we need to have a Boolean kind of value with which we need to deal with, it is not a good practice to use integer there. Using an integer where the Boolean variable can be used is a bad programming style in C++. Apart from Boolean variable, pointers also have been extended in C++, and another data type called reference variable has been introduced in C++. About pointers and references in C++, we would be discussing in the next module. These data types allow us to create a variable of that type in which we would like to store a value. We know that in any program we take some values, process them and give some result out. So, the data which comes to the application, it gets processed and some result gets out of that particular program, and the data that comes into your program you store in some variables. And we know that in most of the languages the variables that we use in the program needs to be declared before they are used. So, now we will try to see that how variables are declared in C++. In C++, variables are declared more or less the way we declare the variable in other languages, but as you know C and C++ are block structured programming languages, and the scope and the lifetime of the variable is associated with the block in which they are actually declared. More or less we declare the variable in C++ as we declare in C, but there is a little difference in declaration of variable in C++, that in C we are only allowed to declare the variable in the beginning of the block. But in C++, it is not necessary that we declare the variable always in the beginning of the block. We can declare the variable anywhere in the block. The only restriction is that it must be declared before its first use. Now, let us see this with the help of an example. Here we have this block with us. We have two blocks in this program, one which marks the beginning and end of the main function, and this another block that we have it. We have declared one variable value 1 in the beginning of this main block. We can assign the value 10 over here, then we can have some executable code here, and now here we can declare variable int value 2. You would see that this int value 2 is not declared in the beginning of the block. This will not work in C, because in C we have this restriction that the variable can only be declared in the beginning of the block, but this will work in C++, because in C++ we are allowed to declare the variable anywhere in the block. The only restriction is that it must be used, it must be declared before its first use. Now, from here we have another block beginning. So, when I declare a value this will work in C and C++ both, because it is declared in the beginning of the block. But if I try to declare another variable somewhere here, it will not work in C, but it will work in C++. Now, where the variable is being defined and how a variable has been defined also determine the scope and lifetime of the variable, and the languages define the various storage classes to which a variable would belong, and that storage classes will tell us that what is the scope of the variable and what is the lifetime of the variable. In C++ like C, we have 4 storage classes, namely auto, extern, register and static. The first 3 storage classes are same as that in C. Like auto are the variables which are local to any block, extern are the variables which are globally defined, and register are the variable which we declare as register to convey a request to the compiler that we would want this value to be stored in the register. So, these data types more or less work in the same way as they work in C, but the implementation of static storage class, that is static storage class, has been extended in C++ for specific use with user defined data type. Now, this we would discuss when we discuss the user defined data types in C++. At that time we will see that how static storage class has been extended in C++. All programming languages, we are allowed to initialize the variable at the time of declaration, and actually it is a good practice to initialize the variable at the time of declaration. You know that when we declare a variable, the memory is allocated for that particular variable, but the variable does not have any meaningful value into it. So, the variable would not start with some meaningful value, there will be some garbage value stored into it. So, if we initialize the variable at the time of the declaration, right from the beginning the variable will have some meaningful values, and this is a good practice because this avoids many kinds of error getting incorporated in the code. In C++, we can have 2 kinds of initialization, namely static initialization and variable initialization. This is an example of static initialization. This initialization is same as that of the way we do in C, that we declare a variable and we initialize that variable with some constant value into it. So, here we are declaring int value 1 is equal to 10. So, we are initializing value with some fixed value and the value with which the variable needs to be initialized is known at the time of compilation. Similarly, when we declare another variable, here also we are initializing the value 2 with some fixed constant value, that is 20. This statement will not work in C, not because of the kind of initialization it has. This will not work in C because this variable has not been declared in the beginning of the block, but this initialization is valid in C. If this variable would have been declared in the beginning of the block, this initialization would have worked fine in C. In C, we can do this static initialization, but C++ also allows us to have variable initialization. Let us see what we mean by variable initialization. We would try to see that with the help of an example. Here you would see that we have declared one variable int value 1. Now, in this variable, we declare a variable and we read the value of this variable. You know that Cin is an object that we can use to perform input operation, or we would talk about this C in detail at a later stage. Now, here what we are doing is we are defining another variable value 2 and we are initializing with this value 2 with square of value 1. You would see that value 1 does not have a value in it at the time of compilation. This value would be available at the time of execution, and whatever value the user gives for value 1, the square of that value will be used to initialize the variable value 2. This kind of initialization will not work in C, but this kind of initialization will work in C++. So, it is a variable initialization. Why? Because the value with which the value 2 variable will be initialized is not fixed, it would vary. When I give a different value to value 1, value 2 will be initialized with a different value. Let us say if I give if I give 5 for value 1, value 2 will be initialized as 25. When I give 6 as a value of value 1, the value 2 will be initialized with 36. So, the value with which the value 2 variable will be initialized is varying. Therefore, this kind of initialization is called variable initialization. It is in general good practice to initialize the variable at the time of declaration itself. Okay. Now, let us have a look at operators in C++. As we say that C++ is an extension of C. So, whatever operators which are valid in C are also valid in C++, and they are used more or less in the same way as we use them in C. But apart from those operators that C++ has borrowed from C, C++ has also added its own operators. We would discuss few of such operators here. We would discuss here scope resolution operator, new operator, delete operator and casting operator. There are other operators also apart from that which have been added by C++, but for their understanding we would need the understanding of other constructs in C++. So, as we progress we will keep on discussing those operators. First of all, let us see that what is scope resolution operator. The use of the scope resolution operator is that whenever the declaration of a variable declared in the inner scope hides the variable declared in the outer scope, the scope resolution operator lets us use variable declared in the outer scope. We can also use scope resolution operator for class to qualify the class name or to qualify the class member names. But how do we use the scope resolution operator for qualifying the class name or the class member name? That we would see when we discuss classes and objects in detail. But here we will try to take an example wherein the scope resolution operator can be used to access the variable declared in the outer scope. Now, in this example you see that we declare a variable value as a global variable. We also declare another variable with the same name value inside the main function. This declaration is valid in C and C++ both, because though the name of both the variables is same, they are defined in two different scopes. Therefore, we can have this kind of declaration. Now, when I try to print the value of value, which value will be displayed? Well, you are right. Here the value for value of this variable will be 20 and the output that will be displayed will be 20. Why it is so? Because the scope in which we are executing this statement has this declaration, and the innermost declaration or the declaration which is in the innermost scope of the statement that we are executing will be applicable. But there may be a situation where we may want that global value to be displayed. Now, if we want that global value to be displayed, what do we do? Well, to answer to this is the scope resolution operator. If we want the value defined in the outer scope to be displayed, we can use scope resolution operator. How do we use it? Let us have a look. Now, if I do not want the value of this variable to be displayed, rather than this value, I want this value to be displayed, what I can do is, here I can use the scope resolution operator. So, when I say scope resolution operator value, the value of variable declared in the outer scope will be displayed. So, here 10 will be displayed as an output. Apart from that, there are two other operators which are added in C++, namely new and delete. New and delete operators are used for the similar purpose for which we used to use the functions like malloc, calloc, realloc and free functions. That is, new and delete are used for program control dynamic memory allocation and deallocation. We can use malloc, calloc, realloc also in the C++, because the C++ is actually the superset of C, and whatever is valid in C is also valid in C++, but it is easier to use new and delete operator for the same purpose. Let us have a look that how do we use a new operator for having program control dynamic memory allocation. The syntax of the new operator is data type star ptr is equal to new and data type. Okay, this will be more clear when we see it with the help of an example. Suppose if I want to get a memory allocated for storing an integer, I can say new int, and the address returned can be stored in a pointer to integer variable. So, this will allocate number of bytes needed for storing integer. Now, here we do not need to use the size of operator that you would use, that would notice here, and neither we require the casting. If we want to get memory allocated for float or character, we can get it allocated like this. So, if at the time of memory allocation, now a memory will be allocated and that memory will be the address will be stored in the pointer variable, but at that memory what we would have? Garbage. If we want that memory which has been allocated also to be initialized with some value, we can use this particular syntax. Now, in this case a memory for integer will be allocated, at that memory 10 will be stored and address of that memory will be returned, which will be stored in IPTR. We can also use new operator for getting memory allocated for arrays. So, if we want a memory to be allocated for 25 integers, we can store it like in 25. So, this statement will get memory allocated for the array of 25 integers. If we want memory to be allocated for 2-dimensional array, we can use this syntax. Here we will get memory allocated for 5 by 5 2-dimensional array of integers. The syntax of the delete operator is delete p, and when we use this, the memory to which this pointer p is pointing to will be released. Now, since we can use malloc and calloc and whatever memory allocation functions we used to use in C, why use new and delete operator? Well, new and delete operators have lot of advantages over those functions. What are those? Use of new and delete operator is much more efficient, and simple as compared to the memory allocation functions. Why they are efficient? Because function calls have executional overhead, which why they have executional overhead? Because of context switching. So, functions due to context switching has lot of executional overhead, whereas no such overhead is there with the operators. Also, you would have noticed that the syntax of new and delete operator is simple, as we do not need to pass size of data type, neither we need to do any kind of the typecasting for the returned address that has been written by the operator. Apart from this, new and delete operators can be overloaded to meet specific need. So, when we will discuss the overloading of operators, we will throw more light onto this, and we would realize that it is good to use new and delete operators. So, it is more efficient and easy to use new and delete operator as compared to the memory allocation functions that we used to do in C++, C. The other operators we would see in the due course of time as we progress in the coming modules, because their discussion at this point is not feasible, as they require the knowledge of other C++ constructs. As all other languages, most of the other languages, C++ also has a set of control structures that we can use it, and these control structures are if and else, switch case, while loop, do while loop, for loop. All of them work in the similar way as they work in C. So, we just had a very brief overview of the basic building blocks of C++, like data set, the variable declarations, identifier definition, initialization, operators. So, these are the basic building blocks on which the language can be built. In the coming modules, we will try to see those constructs which are provided by C++, which can help us create an object oriented program or object oriented solution. But before we move on to that, in the next session we will try to see that how pointers have been extended in C++ and how reference variables can be used in C++. So, I look forward to see you in the next module, where we will be discussing pointers and the reference variables in C++. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.